Hey, let's get into this. Hi, welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. I've lived in South Dakota most of my life, but what you're hearing is not a Midwestern accent. No, it's what's called a speech impediment. Since I've experienced so much transformation in my life, I've become a transformational speaker and author. Try that again. And author. Well, anyway, the book behind me, whatever. And and I love photography, love writing, just love life. And speaking of things of people loving things and of enthusiasm and of just determination and confidence and kindness and a great sense of humor. My guest today is my guest today. I'm so excited about. I'll be back in a minute to introduce him. Back in a minute.
Today's guest, Jon Kovach Jr.
Let me tell you quick about Jon Kovach. Check this out. As an award-winning international motivational speaker and global mastermind leader, he has helped thousands of professionals overcome their challenges and achieve their goals through his irrefutable laws of high performance. That he does this with an infectious blend of good nature and genuine kindness is nothing short of inspirational. As founder of the Champion Circle Networking Association, and eight-time national #1 best-selling author, Mastermind Team Leader and facilitator for the Habitude Warrior Mastermind and the Global Speakers Mastermind and Masterclass. Jon's accomplishments are downright awe-inspiring. And being much younger than me, he's 33, don't tell anyone. Jon makes me wish I had been willing to take on greater challenges when I was younger. Please help me welcome Jon Kovach to our Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Jason, thank you so much, and thank you for the intro. Sorry it was so long. I don't always know what to say in those, but I really am excited to connect with you, share great conversations and stories today, and help people feel awesome. This is a honor of mine just as much as you probably feel it is to me. I'm really grateful to be here.
It's an honor to have you, and I'm anxious. You have so many amazing stories, and I'm excited to get way into it. And I guess the first point is what you do with your bio. So often we are kind of we kind of don't share accomplishments and we can think, well, that is just good to be humble and blah blah blah. But if people don't know who we are, how are they going to find us and engage us with in what actually matters to us?
I completely agree with you. And I want to just jump right in because you brought up the age thing. And I think it's hilarious because age is relevance for sure. But, I attribute a lot of what I've learned in my life and what I've experienced to two things. Number one is ADHD. I don't even know how to spell it, but apparently it allows you to think really, really quickly and pick up a lot of new projects and say yes to a lot of things. And that is unfortunately and fortunately where my life has come from, having suffered from, but also experienced ADHD. I tell people, hi, my name is Jon Kovach Jr. and ADHD is my superpower. I use it for good. And the second thing is, I had an incredible family. My parents were always encouraging me to try new things, to do new things that scared me, that pushed me. And so, yeah, in the short 33 years that I've lived, I've probably lived 2 or 3 lifetimes that most people would experience. But I would say that even saying that statement makes me feel like that's not true, because I feel like anyone can have a lifetime of experiences in a short amount of time, even by just going on vacation or working for a job or doing something that they love, because there's so much that comes out of it. So if anything, yes and no. I have had a lot of experience as a very young person, but no, because I feel like once you learn the power of storytelling, anything you do go through and experience is worth sharing. And yes, I probably have 10 times more stories than the most average person, but at the same time too, it's because I know how to find them. I know how to pick them apart. And I'm a silver lining kind of guy. Everything I do is all about the lessons learned and making mistakes. With everything I've done in my life, I've made more mistakes. And yes, there are on shelves that literally say how to do this and not make mistakes. And I went right past them because I figured I could do it myself. And that's the way of life I love to live, is I'm willing to learn the hard way to make life better for not only me, but for those I work with. So let's kick it off. I'm super excited to dive right in, but I just wanted to share that age is relevant, but I also believe that we are all living incredible lives.
So many gems in what you said, but I need to ask, at what age did you determine that, hey, I have ADHD, instead of it holding me back, I'm going to make it into my superpower?
Yeah, as a high functioning young athlete, I definitely hid my ADHD throughout high school, but I believe I self-diagnosed myself way back when I was about 16 years old. Just I noticed something was off, and it depended on what I did, what I ate, and how I behaved. And so there was definitely something off, but I got the official diagnosis not until I was about 22 years old. And it was because I could see things in my life where I recognized that my energy was at high highs and very, very low lows. And it depended on my nutrition, it depended on my exercise, and a lot of my behaviors. And so at a very young age still, I mean, people find out when they're in grade school. Some people don't even find out until they're, in their 50s or 60s. And either way, it is something that you can tolerate. It is something that you can medicate for, and it's something that you can live with. It's not an impediment or something that holds us back. And I love talking to you about this, because our the things that society deems as, a disorder or something that holds us back, that's not normal, can actually be our greatest assets. And so that's why I love talking to you, Jason, because you inspire me with what you have been doing and what you've got going on, because again, it's one of your greatest assets, and we lean into those superpowers. And I'm very proud of where I've come from and learned about it. And you know what? When the doctor told me you've got ADHD, here's some pills to do it, I said, hey doc, is there anything I can do to not take those pills and still function the way I am? Because my brain is beautiful. Like, I love the creativity. I love my energy. I love where I come from, and I don't want to dilute that. And he said, well, it's going to be very hard, but okay, that's all I needed to hear. Everything else tuned him out. He's like, blah, 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 blah. You need to take vitamins. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, all I heard was you can do it. And that's all I needed.
What you said an amazing affirmation right there. You said my brain is beautiful. How often do humans, including me, think, if only I was smarter, if only I could do this or this with my mind. But why not just say, hey, my brain is beautiful. It allows me to live this amazing experience.
Oh man, I love what you just said there, because absolutely. I mean, don't we all wish for something we don't have, right? But I have learned, and it was mostly through trial and error, that my brain functions differently than everyone else's, and that's what makes it beautiful. I agree. I think that, where our strengths may not be the strengths of others, and who strengths we particularly see in the world. A great example of this is while in college, I have the ability to come up with really great ideas. And that doesn't help my math grades. That doesn't help my science grades. And you know what? It didn't help. It was my creativity in regards to art. And in college, I promised and I swore to myself that I would take college calculus 10 times over again, rather than go back to my introduction to drawing and painting class, because I struggled with drawing and painting so badly that they were expecting us to pump out these new works of art every single day. And I was always 10 or 15 projects behind, because you've probably seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, where he likes to draw, and he draws a picture for the girl he's going to ask to the prom.
Yeah,
And
and
he
he
shows her,
drives
and she says,
a Lugo, right? Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And he says, it took me 10 hours working on the shading of your upper lip. And it's like, that's how I feel. I'm so slow with the creative process when it comes to art. But my brain would definitely prefer calculus or anything else over that, even though I'm not that great at math either. So again, I love where the brain is so capable of its personal things, and the sooner you can figure out what it is about your brain and how it works and how it operates and your strengths, boy, you will be in a much better place, because you can do things that you're capable of rather than the things that frustrate you most. And that's something I've always leaned into.
It sounds like John, that you've really figured out your unique operating system, rather than reading some general manual somewhere. You've figured out what makes you function at your best.
Absolutely. And you bring something up, Jason, is what is your personal operating manual? And I think it's two things. I think it's your belief system, okay, what you believe in. And I think it's also how often you reflect. Those two things are powerful tools in being able to access your true superpowers. Number one for me is I believe in number one, and number one is always myself. And then whoever I have instant access to, I believe in them too. My reflection process is as easy as journaling. I know it sounds so high schoolish to diary or to journal your thoughts, but the more I can journal them, whether I'm physically writing them, audibly sharing them and recording them, or even typing them on a computer, the more I journal, the more clarity I get in my life. And my belief system continues to honor, support, enhance, and be the foundational platform to which my successes continue to derive from. So I'm a firm believer in what you said.
So speaking of clarity, a very wise person said, if you don't have a burning desire for something, for anything, you don't achieve that which you seek.
Great question. Yeah, I think
No, actually, I got that off your Facebook page. You said that, man. Those are
like,
your words. I'm
it does
quoting
sound
you.
familiar. Absolutely. And and here's why I would say that is because obviously I've delved deep into Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill's work. And the more I recognize that your personal desires, your ambitions, the things you want, those become the heart on your sleeve. But when you keep those things inside you, you let them fester, you let them hold, keep within, it's really hard to have an expressed action that continues to secrete or grow or even exude from you because you're keeping them in. Now, I'm not saying there's a difference between like extroverts and introverts and anything in that regard, but the less you share, the less you keep from coming out of you, the more opportunities you will find. And so you definitely need to lean into your desires. I conducted an experiment just a few years ago as I started speaking on more stages. And in the speaking industry, the more stages you speak on, the more you become a vendor, the more you sit outside and you have people come to your table and you connect with them there as well. And I started telling people what was on my vision board. I started telling people what I was working towards rather than what I had done. I had rather than talk about the past, let's talk about the future, because the future is exciting. And the more I did it, the more opportunities came to be. There was a lady sitting across the hall from me at one of these exhibitions, and she was selling a bunch of jewelry. And I thought it was really interesting. I said, "Oh man, where do you get this jewelry?" She said, "Well, we source them all over the world." But she was helping women in underprivileged countries to build these jewelry sets and then sell them on retail prices so that they could fund their lives in their countries. It was a really cool project and a cool nonprofit. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I love this idea." I told her, I've always wanted to go back to the Philippines and start a nonprofit where I could help fund the lives of these hardworking businessmen and women who have the skill sets necessary to serve the rest of the world. And I told him, I said, I'd love to own and operate my own freshwater pearl farm in the Philippines. She goes, "You do, huh? All right, give me 2 seconds." And she runs back to her desk or her table. She picks up her phone. She's making a few text messages. A few minutes later, she comes back. She goes, "I've got a guy. He's looking to develop his land. He doesn't know what to do with it. He's Filipino. I can't really talk to him, but I've known him for 10 years. Here you go." And she connects me. I'm like, it worked. It's actually working. If you talk about the future and you talk about your goals, your aspirations, and your desires, and you delve deep into them and you focus on them, they're only going to come true because you've created the existence that is, these things can't be in the world without you. So oftentimes as a follow-up to that statement you read from social media is, think about the things and the people and the costs that happen based on you not achieving your goals. If you aren't putting your desires out there, putting out your goals, putting out your aspirations, think about who suffers at the cost of you not showing up. And to me, I don't work off of negativity. I don't work off of negative reinforcement really well. But to me, that matters because I feel like when I know that other people rely on my success, then I'm willing to work harder because it's not just me who's expecting it. It's the people that I could serve that get me out of bed every morning. And I just think that's a powerful thing to think of it in regards to your goals, your wishes, and your desires.
I have definitely something to follow up that's amazing. But Dale says, "Hello guys, John, that's a great thing, journaling. I've been doing that my whole life, especially since I read so many books that give me ideas."
It's beautiful. I agree. Daryl, great to see you and hear from you. What an incredible thing. And from somebody who has been journaling their entire life, what a great testimonial to the power of writing things down. I'm a big believer in it. My wife used to work with an individual who had cerebral palsy, and her favorite source of connection was journaling. And I had to ask her, I said, "You have palsy. How do you journal? Like, isn't it just like, how?" And she says, "When there's a will, there's a way." I can do it at a certain time when my muscles are the calmest, and I can read my own handwriting. No one else needs to read my scribbles. And I said, that's beautiful, because again, it's personal and it's for you. It has nothing to do with everyone else. Sure, your lineage and your legacy may stumble upon your journals one day and read them for them. And if you're writing it for them, great. But it really is for you, because no one else is privy to the chicken scratch that we own right ourselves. It is for us, and it creates the most sense of clarity that any one of us can gain. So I love what Daryl said.
Yeah. I used to try and keep it all in my mind, all the ideas and stuff, but I don't think the mind is designed to store all that and try and remember a million things. And so journaling is a way to get it out and see it. And
yeah, I love that. And I agree. By the way,
Right.
Jason, my I just ordered my copy of Awkwardly Awesome. It's on its way to my house, so I'll too be able to share a copy of your book on my shelf soon. I just saw your book over your shoulder. Sorry for the tangent.
Hey, thank you so much, John. Thanks so much. When you were saying about letting what's inside you out in service of others, I started thinking about the technology we are talking back and forth on, the lights above our heads. Maybe Thomas Edison was lonely as he invented the light bulb, all the designers since. But think of if they had just said, "We have these ideas, but it seems like so much work, and I don't know if it will work, and who are we to design something cool, and let's just not do it." We might not be having this conversation.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's extremely important to do so, and to follow up from that. I think, again, if you want to have accelerated results and successes in your life, there are resources that you personally can tap into that truly give you the power to have a lifetime of experiences in a short amount of time. And
A
it's
lifetime of experiences in a short amount of time. That's a powerful. You might want to keep that line, or maybe you already use it. That's great. But speaking of experiences, would you talk about what you learned about relating to people and about sales? And you think I'm going to say one thing, but first I'm going to ask you about another. What did you and your brother learn about sales from doing your newspaper route?
oh my gosh, I love this.
Or not your newspaper route, your lawn mowing service.
Yeah, tomato, right? When you're young, you do whatever it takes, and I called it the hustle age. And I know that word has a negative connotation to some these days, but it really was the hustle. It was the side hustle for me and my brother. So at age 12, it actually is where it started. My mom was helping us make more money because we didn't have the same financial resources as everyone else, but yet we went to a nicer school, a more affluent neighborhood, and so forth. And that's where we got our education growing up. So we would do these side jobs to make money so that we could go on regular family vacations and afford things like everyone else. So we were all working. And at 12, my mom started a vending machine business, and we would literally pack all these vending carts and take them to businesses, and we would collect them and then restock them every week. It was a really great way for us to save some money. From that, I learned, okay, if I work, I can make money. So I wanted more access to that. And my brother and I were like, hey, we're both physical guys. let's go knock on doors with the lawnmowers in hand and say, hey, would you pay us $20 to mow your lawn? And before you know it, we took over the neighborhood and we were doing everyone's lawn. So if you do the math, an average of whatever, 100 houses in a couple weekends, we were making some pretty good dough. And
100 houses, that's a lot of lawn you mowed.
it's a lot because to me and Garrett, my brother, it was a workout. That we weren't just walking and we're sitting on the ride mowers. We were sprinting, pushing these mowers as fast as we could. I'm sure we did a horrible job, but that didn't matter to us because a job done meant job paid and we were able to do stuff. But
a job done means a job paid. Nice.
Yeah. And I think that mentality is what a lot of people think when they go to work, right? Most people earn an hourly salary or a wage. Very few people in this world operate off of a commission or project-based employment. And we're getting to a world and a society now where the commission-based is a lot more popular because someone can wake up and say, you know what, I feel like doing a lot of work today, and they want to be paid for that work. Someone can wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to do 20 minutes of work. I'm going to go ski on the mountain slopes today. And that's the freedom a lot of people are yearning for. But back to your question, Jason, is, what did I learn? What did my brother and I learn about sales back in our lawn mowing days? Honestly, it was a couple of things. Number one is if we showed up, we got paid and the job got done. Number two was you can do anything great and you can do a lot of things in a short amount of time if you prioritize your energy and your effort. And number three was nothing was more convincing than using your squeaky little immature voice with a lawnmower in hand by knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, I'd like to mow your lawn. Would that be okay? It's really hard to say no to somebody who's already got everything in hand to work for you. And that's what I learned about sales is that when I show up to make a sales call or to close a deal or to build a new partnership relationship with a company or an organization, is I show up with all the tools and resources in hand, ready to rock and roll as if we were going to press go or press play or flip the switch on this and head out, because it's really hard to say no to somebody who's really excited and willing to do the work. And that's something I'm really proud to know and have learned at such a young age, because nowadays, Jason, as an adult running multiple businesses, finances and all these other responsibilities come into play, and it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's not the best part of the day. The best part of the day is doing the work. And I like to think back on that simplicity and that clarity because it gives me more perspective of what I should remember when I show up for a sales call rather than what's expected in a sales call.
So John, how would you describe the difference between being confident and ready to work in a sales call versus being pushy and manipulative? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. A couple things come to mind, Jason. It's number one, confidence doesn't mean you have to be pushy, right? Confidence is bigger than that. It's being comfortable in your own skin. I did not mention that I had a terrible fear of talking to people growing up. And I learned I got over that through a few experiences in my life, but I honestly was just as introverted as anyone else. And I had this fear in me that I would say the right things. Boy, dating was a hard experience for me because I was definitely the guy from the movies that would stumble over my words when I was trying to talk to the girl. I'd be like, hi, John, my name, I could never get it out, but I definitely feared conversation, but I had confidence in my own skin that if I had a smile, if I showed up and I was just there, they don't have to see what's going on inside of me. They get to see what I'm doing, showing up and ready to perform. And oftentimes it's hard to say no to that. I know everyone's got their own demons, and I know that everyone's struggling with something. In fact, the safest place in anyone's world is their own mind, because they don't have to express, share, and say what's really going on in here. But at the same time too, it doesn't really matter. You can show up terrified, but yet you can still jump off the high dive, and it's okay.
You can show up terrified, but you can still jump off the high dive.
Absolutely. So I definitely think that the principle here is, yeah, confidence is important. Be comfortable in your own skin, but you don't necessarily have to have it all together. In order to have success in sales or anything, you just need to show up. And oftentimes that's blown out of proportion and not simplified enough for most people, because success isn't easy. I learned this from our dear friend Ruben Gonzalez, who was connected to me from Eric Swanson. He used to say, success isn't easy, but it is simple. And sometimes if you can just simplify all the clutter and just show up, man, you'll find a lot more success that way.
In sales, how do we stay out of the icky stuff, out of the feeling like we're manipulating people?
Yeah. When you bring the word manipulation into it, it comes with some sort of premeditated move to get what you want. And, I have a copy right here. Great book. I highly recommend. This becomes one of your foundational sources for education and behavior as you go into business. But I've got a copy here of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And luckily,
Fantastic.
At a young age, I had an instructor or a teacher in school who had me read this. And they said, look, if you learn this and you do so at a young age, you will be able to build relationships way better than anyone else. And, I often find that the people who struggle with building relationships, who are on the manipulative side, have oftentimes been victims or bullied in their life. And it's because they don't know how to respond nor interact in a better way. And sometimes they're a little overly confident in their abilities that they tend to push that into other people's lives. And you know what? Like sometimes, and most of the time, they don't recognize they're doing it, although it is premeditated. So in summary of this, I would just say that the fact that, yes, there are things and ways to get people to say and do what you'd like them to do. But what this ultimately teaches us is that there's no tricks, gimmicks, or any tactic worth pursuing that allows people to do something out of their own will. You want to find as many people who are willing to say yes, who are open to yes, who are excited to say yes. And that's when we talk about sales, marketing, and demographics, they always use the term, what's your ideal client, or what's your ideal avatar? And I want to, and if I can simplify it, yeah, it's probably an in business between 3 and 5 years, is makes X amount of money, is a male or female of this age group and likeness, right? Rather than getting into that, my answer to my avatar is they're excited and willing to say yes. Because truthfully,
your ideal client is simply someone who's excited and willing to say yes.
Yes,
Brilliant.
Absolutely. Knock,
so
knock,
simple.
knock. Hi, I'm John. I'm here to mow your lawn. I got the lawnmower in the back. Is it okay if I mow your lawn? Sorry, we just mowed it. No worries. Go to the next house. Boom. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm John. I got my lawnmower here. I'm ready to mow your lawn. Is it okay if I mow your lawn? Yeah, go for it. You're my client, right? I like it when you give me
that's so simple.
Why not, right? Why not make it simple? Because life's too long for us to complicate it.
So you said you were somewhat nervous and insecure in high school about some things, but at age 19, what did you do then? Did you just hang out and stress about being nervous and insecure, or did you do something else?
I definitely did something else, and I'll share that. I'll definitely share with that in a second. But That 14-year-old who pushed lawnmowers, started a DJing business at age 16. That's where I found my voice. I found it behind a microphone. I learned that I could solve problems and help people have great experiences by jumping behind a microphone, still battling with my inner demons and feeling that nervousness, but just tackling it with a smile on and saying, you know what? If they say no, they say no, but they're not my people. If they say yes enthusiastically, then that's my person. And I, having battled that, I still rose to the top of social connection. I graduated as the senior class president of my high school. I had several scholarships and awards. I was the team captain of most of the sports I played, but yet I still battled that internal disbelief in who I was. And I knew that I needed to do something drastic to overcome that. So after high school, in preparation to go to college for the sport that I was competing in, I was a track and field athlete.
What sport?
I was a track and field athlete. I was very successful in the 400 and the 800 and the mile in high school, and I did a lot of field events as well. I was going to go to college for the decathlon, which was 10 events, 2 days. And I would have to learn pole vault and javelin since they didn't have that in Colorado. And that's what I was going to do. But I knew that I needed to take a step in my life first, rather than start chasing my dreams as becoming a professional athlete. I needed to literally run after it, right? I needed to fix something. And I knew that through the power of service and dedication and sacrifice, I'd be able to do that. I grew up in a great religion that encourages their young people to go on mission trips. And you commit to 18 months to 2 years, and you get randomly assigned. Well, I put in my application, and I got called to a place called the Philippines.
Did you know that you would be going international, or did you not even know that?
I didn't even know that. I failed.
Like you could have gone to Nebraska?
Yeah, I could have been sent. I put on my application I was open to anywhere that they send me, and that I had no restrictions. But secretly going on inside my head, Jason, I was praying to God. I was like, please send me to rural Texas where I don't have to learn a language, where I don't have to eat crazy random food. I like tacos. And I don't want to be out of my comfort zone. I just want to go somewhere where I can stay in shape, do my service, get back home, and continue chasing my dreams as a track and field athlete. That's what I was praying.
So you didn't get assigned to the Texas countryside at all?
Not at all. In fact, I believe in my heart that God heard my prayers and said, I'm going to give you exactly what you need. And he sent me to the rural, using those words, the rural country of the Philippines, where my subconscious affirmed everything that I needed, which was new food, new language, new situation, all things new. I needed to see the world in a different way to gain a better, bigger perspective. So God, go ahead.
Let's continue with that in a sec. But why sometimes does that happen? We're praying for one thing, and we get a totally diametrically opposed different things.
I wish I knew the answer to that, but here's what I believe is that where energy goes, energy flows, and the law of magnetism is heard by all sources of life, including the subconscious. And when I would say, please don't send me anywhere foreign, my subconscious, and I believe the higher power, doesn't hear the don't please. In fact, I think they ignore it and it goes straight to somewhere foreign. And Mother Nature works in mysterious ways, but I think it's pretty simple if you ask me, which is what I was asking for was what I needed. I said, please don't send me here. I don't want to learn this. I don't want to learn that. And I think that what really needed to happen, and what was actually being affirmed in my belief, in my heart, in my mind, and my connection with the higher power, is they said, I know exactly what you need, and you just gave me the script for it. I'm going to send you to the place that needs you the most, because you have a lot of learning to do. And
So how much training do you have in the language before you're suddenly in the Philippines?
so I get an application confirmation. It says you're going to go live in the Philippines for 2 years, but for 6 weeks, you're going to go to this training center where we're going to teach you how to speak the language. And I promise you, after 6 weeks, I did not know a language. I knew vocabulary words and I knew a few things. It was really frustrating because I felt like I went to a place like a prison per se, where I was waiting to go to the Philippines and learn and read and just get myself prepped. But it wasn't a prison. It was a very powerful place where I gained a lot of information and connection. And it really got me thinking about my life that was going to happen for the next 2 years. So it was a good experience, but I really, as much training as they gave us, there's the training that I received, which was very minimal. And I remember heading off to the Philippines, getting on the plane, and I sat down next to someone on the plane who's only spoke Filipino. And I remember trying to have a conversation with them, and they were like, I could tell that they were confused. Like, you spent 6 weeks studying my language and you can't carry a conversation. Good luck to you. And I felt that, but really some of the best experiences is experienced by immersion. And immersion is totally submitting yourself to the process, jumping in with feet first and allowing the experience to take over. And that's essentially what accelerated my training and my experience. Obviously, when you get to your assigned location, there's a trainer, there's a person there to be your constant companion for a few weeks, and they get to really walk you through the steps and really help you. It's just like getting a new job. There's a manager that oversees your work and they sort of train you in what you need to do. Same thing happened. And I had some really great trainers take me under their wing and focus on language and culture and focus on other things too. There's some pretty good stories that come from that.
What would you say to someone who wants to make a major change in their life like you did, but they keep telling themselves reasons that they can? And
Well, again, I when I was first getting involved in personal development, I was ecstatic and I was like, you've got to have, radical transformations in your life to make any difference. And the more that I've experienced that, the more I've learned that there's elements to radicalism, but all humans are alike, and that we need consistent repetition and continuous effort in the journey in order to create the outcome that you wish. And I think that when it comes to like actually developing a skill, I can give you a football and say, hey, we're going to learn how to throw a football 50 yards. But before you can throw a football 50 yards, you've got to learn to throw a football 5 yards. And then you build off of that and you work 5-yard increments all the way up until the time you can release and it hits 50 yards. I think that that's just an important understanding skill to recognize, whether it's reading, whether it's speaking, whether it's sales, whether it's any skill that you desire to help you improve your life. It is something that you can acquire. There are very, very few examples in the world of overnight successes. And unfortunately, those are the things that we think about most, is how can I transition now and make that radical change? But radicalism isn't always going to be a positive experience. In fact, a lot goes into the changing of your universe and your experience and your ecosystem. So I believe it takes practice. I believe it takes a lot of consideration and focus. And I will say that having been to the Philippines, and after about 2 months, so about 8 weeks, I started feeling comfortable in my conversations. I started feeling a little bit more comfortable about what we were actually doing out there, and all the service that we were doing. And that lesson has led to a lot of things I do in my life. I'll jump in head first or feet first, but I definitely am going to take the time necessary to develop the skill sets and the muscles needed to be sustainable at it.
So after 2 years of immersion in this language, how do you say I don't even know how to say the language's name.
Yeah, the language is called Tagalog. It's
So
spelled.
after two years of immersion in Tagalog,
Mhm.
were at a point you actually helped with curriculums to train other people, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And before I did that, um, towards the end of that 2-year experience, someone had to call me and say, "Hey, Jon, your mission's almost over. In a week, you'll be packing your bags and we'll be sending you home." And I was like, bewildered, like totally shocked that that was it. And I also,
So you were sad
yeah,
that your mission was done.
I was so sad. But what I was also shocked about was how hard it was to have that conversation, because that conversation was in English. And I was living on this island speaking the Philippine language and totally immersed that I forgot the color of my skin. I forgot my lineage. I was
Mm,
all in, and I was speaking
mm,
these languages,
mm.
and I had trouble speaking English. So when they said, "Jon, you're going to be leaving in a week, it's time to go home," I mean, I was like, "What's the English word for passport? And how do I get from point A to point B?" And I was like struggling. I was like, "Oh my gosh,
Mm,
I have to get back." And
mm.
I realized that, yeah, that full commitment to immersion was powerful. It led to me coming home. And in the United States, I was in a transitional period where I wasn't running for a track program. I wasn't doing athletics, but I was training to get back into the swing of running. And I needed to use my skill sets. So I went back to that training center and I started teaching. And I started teaching the language of Tagalog. And I found
Wow.
out that I wasn't the only one struggling with this language thing, that there are other countries and cultures who struggle to learn languages, because right now all the resources are written in English. It's a Spanish English dictionary, it's a Tagalog English dictionary. You learn English, or you have English, so you can learn that language. But there are very few other resources that translate from I'll just say French to directly to the Philippines. And I thought,
That's a big gap.
huge gap. And we started getting these missionaries who are coming from the Pacific Islands, like Samoa, Tonga, the island of Kiribati, Malaysia, and they don't even know English. And yet they were coming to be trained and learn Tagalog or Philippine language with the basis of English. And I said, we got to fix this. There's got to
So like they don't know English and yeah, that wouldn't work that well.
I mean, I struggled for 6 weeks learning Tagalog in this training center. Imagine having to come to the training center, first learn English, which is already a hard language, and then learn Tagalog or Filipino when you're out there. That doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time just because we don't have the books and resources. So I dedicated 2.5 to 3 years of my life after that experience to writing the curriculum, bypassing English as a language, and focusing on the connection and application of speaking another language from your personal home language. And we used it through a series of photos, pictures, emblems, activities, and experiences, rather than a dictionary, a words, a vocabulary tool set, and so much more. And we bridged the gap between languages that didn't already have those resources, so that people could still learn and still have the experience that I had doing what I did in the Philippines.
That's fascinating. And think of the ripple effect of that work you've done. switching gears.
Sure.
So Alex Swanson has been a major force of good in my life and in your life. How do you meet this amazing man?
He is amazing. In fact, he's awesomely amazing. I met Eric in 2019. I was competing in a public speakers competition in Salt Lake City, and what that inquired was it was about 20 contestants who gave a 3-minute speech on stage telling a story, and then the judges would score them. And one of the celebrity judges was Eric Swanson. And the funny part of this story is not only was I competing in this competition, but I had my own businesses and I was sort of stretched pretty thin because I was coaching my local high school's football team. I was an assistant coach for the varsity wide receivers, and that night at the competition was our last playoff game night. We lost the playoff game. I was about an hour and a half south of Salt Lake City where the event was happening, and once we finished our game, I jumped in my car and I drove, probably broke land speed records, getting to Salt Lake, and I literally parked at the hotel where we were having the event. Walked in. I was literally changing as I walked in, and they called my name to step on stage and give my speech. And in my mind, I had kind of pre-planned, like, what story am I going to tell? And I have a story that we haven't even touched on here, and it's okay. Is I got up and I talked about the 8-year-old Jon who had his first experience backpacking with his family in the wilderness. And I love telling the story because it's part of my life and history where I learned to become a mule or a pack horse.
So you told me that story, but you didn't say you were 8 when you told me that story. You forgot to say you were 8, Jon.
Well, clarification. I told you was when I over 24 miles in one day, helping and going back and getting people's backpacks. I was probably 18 years old when that happened, but my first experience ever hiking that trail was when I was 8 years old. And long story short, for your audience, is it was a tradition for Kovach men to hike up to our secret lake and to fish from our secret spot and to continue this tradition of pulling out, eating fish from the lake and having a great old time. And I was so excited as an 8-year-old to do that and to continue on with our family legacy. But I was not prepared for the 8-mile hike all uphill with a very, very poorly planned backpack for an 8-year-old kid to carry that. And my story was talking about the 8-year-old swearing and the pain in every step, but yet the mentorship of my father and the ability for me to overcome that pain and actually reach that destination. And then 10 years later, I'm doing stuff like I shared with you, which is we would take other groups of people up to our secret spot to go fishing. And a lot of them struggled just like I did as an 8-year-old. And instead of letting them just suffer, I would sprint up to the lake. I would drop my bag off and I'd sprint back down the mountain and catch whoever was in last place. And I'd pick up their bag and I'd sprint back up the mountain. I'd drop their bag off and I'd go back and I would do that until everyone had their backpacks at the lake and that they made it to our spot. And I learned that I could do really anything after that because physically I could push my body to its brink. And I could do it in the service of other people. And that's what I told. That's the lesson I shared. So Eric Swanson, speaking competition, I gave that story. I said, thank you. I stepped off stage. They scored it. And each one of them were like, who is this guy? He hasn't been here all week at our conference. He hasn't received any coaching or training from the judges. He just waltzes in here, tells a kick butt story, and we don't even know him. And needless to say, that impressed Eric. We had conversations after that, and we continued to build a friendship and some connections as a result of that fun and interesting event? And the answer I'm guessing that most people are wondering from that story is, did you win the competition? And the answer is, I took second.
That's awesome. What do you love about the work you and Eric do together?
Man, I love the work Eric and I are doing. Eric approached me after we connected and invited me to, well, more, I like to tell it this way. I knew that he had some really big events. The Habitude Warrior conferences were all over the country at that time. And, I had never been to one. And my goal was to become a speaker at this point. I knew that I had a gift. I knew that I could teach and I could share my voice and reach more people. So I begged Eric. I said, I don't care if I have to, drive down to Houston, Texas to your next event and scrub the toilets of the hotel just to help your event go successful. Whatever I can do to serve and help, I will do it. And he said, you know what? I know you're a speaker. We have an opening. We have an extra MC spot. You can be one of the co-MCs, and let's get you involved. And I started practicing, and literally from there, it evolved into, I love mastermind groups. And so he and I collaborated on his mastermind, the Habitude Warrior Mastermind. That grew into us leading and growing an interview masterclass series called the Global Speakers Mastermind. And then from there, we found out that.
And by the way, I have to tell everyone, John's a great interviewer. You interviewed me a few months ago, and it was awesome.
We had a blast. It was such a fun experience and such an honor to do so. And Eric introduced you as one of the best speakers he's ever heard. He loves listening to you, Jason. And I agree. It was one of my all-time favorite interviews, and I'm grateful for it. And the community that you met at that masterclass is the community that we continue to serve. And so Eric and I have worked on and have built opportunities to help people grow in their profession, like writing books. And so we've now launched 3, and now our 4th book series have come out, and we've helped over 100 people become best-selling authors for the first time.
Over 100, one with 2 zeros behind it.
Yes.
That's a lot of people whose stories you really celebrated and whose voices you really celebrated.
And you know what? The easiest part about all of this was helping them believe that their stories were worth telling the world. And when we approach people and say, look, this is an invite only. We recognize that you're not an author yet. We would like to help you become a best-selling author through this book series. And we want you to write X amount of chapters to contribute to this. And we want to feature your stories. People are always shocked. They're like, wait, this is an option for me. I can do this. And it's usually a no-brainer, because when it comes to writing books, and you'll know this, Jason, is it changes the dynamics. It allows you to share a message with people. And I'm just so honored and thrilled to have had this experience with Eric. And we've accomplished a lot in a little amount of time, but we're not stopping. The pedal is still on the floor. We're still giving each ounce of energy to serving people the way that we believe it needs to be done. And so with that, we're on the verge of a new publishing company, as well as working with our new authors in these book series, as well as our mastermind memberships, which have been absolutely awesome for the growth of many business owners.
It's so wonderful what all you're doing, and I would love to talk with you for another 2 or 3 hours, because folks, we've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and I'm reaching up beyond. I guess I have to. Well, it's not dramatic on a computer screen at all, but so anyway, 2 more quick questions before we go. Jon, I love talking about the power of doing our imperfect best. And what it means to me is we have a vision of the best we want to achieve in our lives and for the people around us and for the world. And then when imperfections come up as we go towards our visions, instead of letting those imperfections stop us, we learn from them and move forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Jon Kovach? Kovach?
Man,
Kovach. Kovach.
either one. I would my great grandfather would correct you and say Kovach because it's the Slovenian in me, but it's Kovach or Kovach, but I prefer Kovach. I love what you said, Jason. And again, going back to the first statement, our brains are beautiful. Your imperfect self is so beautiful. In fact, that's what makes you different. It's what makes you unique. And it's what creates the layers of experiences that build a life of success. And I would just say lean into your imperfections. I've made so many mistakes. I've lost thousands of dollars building businesses the right and wrong ways. And I've done so many deals that have gone south and have gone north, but all
and east and west,
and some of them haven't even moved. It's really, really at its core. I just want to thank you for the mission that you lead off with, Jason, because it truly is empowering to know that no matter what decisions we make, as long as we're not stagnant in our choices, that we continue to have movement. And that movement is beautiful because it's ours. It's personal. It's everything. I literally was sharing this with our mastermind group the other day. I picked up a book by Deepak Chopra that said, I was 2 pages in, and it said, at the core of the universe, your soul is the world. And I slammed the book shut and I said, I know there's 300 pages left to go, but I am good to go. That is all I needed to know, because at the core of this world, my soul is the world. And I have the ability and the focus and the power to change it, to make it mine, to make it relevant. And so just like your brain is imperfect, so are your imperfections, and so are your abilities to do things. But yet that is so beautiful. And lean into that. Take as much opportunity to delve and lean into what you're capable of and work towards that. And along the way, someone's going to be kind enough to step in and help you do what you're not capable of doing until they help you. And I just believe that. But again, if you're in the service of your friends, you're going to accomplish a lot more than when you're in the service of yourself.
Amazing. I love that. Lastly, what's the best way for people to connect with your dynamic energy and all your wisdom? And I mean, basically, what I'm trying to ask is, what's your website, social media, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Many ways to find me. I'm pretty omnipresent. If you prefer Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can find me. My handle is the same. It's all lowercase at JonKovachJr. So it's all lowercase, Jon Kovach Jr. Great place to connect with me directly. If you want to send me an email and you'd like to connect more, please send an email to John at jonkovachjr.com, keeping it pretty simple. And if you also want to check out my website, right now I have a website that's under construction, but if you go to speakerjonkovachjr.com, it'll take you to a landing page that has a lot of free resources, cool things. You can check out our books and what we're doing, and it's got everything you need there. And then last but not least, Jason, is I believe in perpetual relationships. Thank you for sending that. I believe in perpetual relationships. And what that means is if you're willing to serve others just as much as they're willing to serve you, your relationships will go a long way. So don't just reach out and ask a question. If you'd like to continue working together, if you'd like to find some cool way to move your life and our lives forward, I love the perpetual pitch, which is I'd like to continue to figure out ways that we can work together. And that opens up a conversation where I open my calendar up and I say, let's talk, let's connect, and let's see what beautiful our imperfect minds can build in this world. And that's something I'm excited about. So either way, you can find me.
Sis, it was so wonderful to have you on today. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your passion, your heart. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jason, for having me on the show. And anytime, if I can serve you, serve your community and your audience, please allow me to help them and inspire them. But our conversations are only the foundations for someone's personal decision and motivation to take action. So I'm really honored to have had this conversation. And even better, I look forward to perpetually growing yours and my connection, Jason. So thank you.
Thanks, my friend. John just said our conversations are only the foundation for us to take action or something along that line. And it's such a good point. Each week I have amazing conversations with amazing people, which turn into amazing conversations. And this week wasn't John just fascinating to talk to. But anyway, I invite you to rethink about what you learned or what moved you, what resonated with you from this conversation, and then ask yourself the next question: How do I most want to take action on this? And it can be a major action, or it can be a really small action, but just think about something to move you in the direction you want to go. Thanks so much for your time and tuning in. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. And if you're tuning in after February 1st, 2023, thanks for tuning in too, and knowing that you're awesome. Next week, I talk to James Emmett. And he's done phenomenal work helping more or giving more people, many more people, tens of thousands more people opportunities to be included in the workplace. So please tune in next week. Until then, you are the best you in the world. Thanks for being you.